I spent 30 years building it.
Building some equity in things and then rolling it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The adult version of the marshmallow test. I think that's owning a business. I think, and there's lots of other things.
That's good. Tim, there's your one-line clip. The adult version of the marshmallow test.
Welcome to another episode of the Overlap Podcast, where we dive into the intersections of work, fitness, family, faith, and leadership. Because here at the Overlap Podcast, we believe that growth in one area of your life fuels growth in all areas of your life. And really, that's why Keith and I are committed to taking the lessons we've learned from business, breaking them down into simple, actionable insights, and empower small business leaders to thrive. We appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode, and hopefully you're getting good value out of this. And if you are, please like and share with all of your friends. Yeah, help them live the overlap life. My God, that sounds corny, but it just popped in my head, so I figured it's along with our mission. Might as well go at it.
Live the overlap life, other than letting it lap over your belt.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. I've been there some.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, is that when you met Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
That's when he saved your life?
He saved my life.
Do you want to share?
No, okay. I'll cry. It'll be tears.
There will be. Yeah, I see. I've seen it a lot when Keith starts talking about how Scott Miller saved his life.
You always need people. You need people like that sometimes.
Dude, I have some of those folks. So what have you been up to?
Oh man,
look, I'm just going to keep reiterating this in the podcast each episode. When we started this, Keith was basically a vagabond, like just roaming around the eastern shore of Mobile Bay, doing whatever he wanted. And many people would ask me, what does Keith do for a living? And I honestly don't know. But now he's working more than I am. And I don't see him very often. So back to the question, Keith, what have you been up to?
Yeah, take notice.
I'm taking notice. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been living that life for 20 plus years. Welcome. I'll just say that to you.
Well, I took a little time off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, moving offices today.
Okay.
Got a crew moving the office today.
Okay. Not physically moving.
Not physically moving. I'm sitting here talking, but
I think you're better at that.
Much better. much better. I'm experiencing like life right now. Aging parents.
Oh yeah.
Growing businesses.
Uh-huh.
Moving offices.
There's almost nothing more I hate than moving.
Yeah. And so, especially moving something that somebody else started. So you got to find out where everything is and what you own and what you don't.
So the Hatch office is moving?
Yep. Hatch office is moving today to our friends at Coastal Community College. They're giving us a space while we're renovating.
That's
the K1 Center.
The K1 Center?
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, 16,000 square feet.
I still haven't seen the plans for
Innovation Hub. It's pretty cool. I'll show you the plans.
Please do.
I will. So just been very, very busy.
Okay.
Doing some new stuff in the publishing company, doing some new stuff with media, doing some programming with media, all that good kind of stuff. And I think that's a good segue into this podcast too. So you think you want to own a business?
Yeah. So
sometimes it gives you the leeway to take off for a few years where no one knows what you do.
Yeah, that's true.
And then sometimes
I would say most of the time it does not.
Well, and then sometimes it takes a downturn where you got to go back to work.
Yeah.
And so
yeah. So
or where you got to plug back in. And you've been there. I've seen you do it.
Oh my. Yeah. Well, and I would say they go through seasons.
Don't you think life goes through seasons?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this balance stuff, I don't think the balance stuff I really struggle with.
So here's my definition of balance. My definition of balance. There's no true equilibrium. Everyone says balance, And the folks at the high level that say balance, I think they understand this, but it never gets explained. And this is probably the purpose of this podcast, to take those big ideas and run them through the filter and go, this is what they're really meaning. Think about, have you ever stepped on a balance beam?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
What's going on?
It's moving constantly.
Yeah, you're constantly moving back and forth. So balance is dynamic pressure of opposing forces, left, right, up, down, whatever, right? Engage the core, all of that stuff. And that's all balance is. It's moving back and forth and getting a little bit more pressure over here. Maybe you overcompensated. Now you're going back. Hopefully you find a little bit, it becomes a little easier the better you get at it, but it's still constant adjustments. And that's balance. It's never, some homeostasis, it's never like perfect equilibrium.
I think that whole balance thing, though, keeps entrepreneurs in frustration a lot. Because if you tell me, if you're one of those people that want to be holistic or whatever in your life,
yeah,
that you just need to find balance, man.
Yeah.
And I fell into that trap a little bit of wanting to, I should have everything mapped out, how much I'm going to work, how much I'm going to be at home, when we're going to go to bed, all of that. And you should have a routine. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if something disrupts that, it shouldn't ruin you.
Yeah.
And ruin your day. And I stayed in a lot of frustration of just trying to be in balance.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like right now, I'm not balanced. If you talk to me right now, I'm not balanced.
Well, maybe you're pushing real hard.
Yep.
To get back to balance.
Yeah.
I think, man, and listen, off air, we were talking about Dave Ramsey, and I was poo-pooing some Dave Ramsey stuff here and there. But in general, 95% of the time, I agree with that guy. And one of his cool statements is live like no one else so one day you can live like no one else. Makes a lot of sense, even more than just, paying off all your debt. That is work too. That is growing a business. That's growing a family. That's growing a life. That's getting fit. That's all kinds of things. There's tons of overlaps there. It's every aspect of your life.
Dave, I love you. You saved my life. I don't care what Sid said.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. And, I feel strongly enough that if Dave would honor us with his presence on this podcast, I'd be happy to argue with him about a few key points. But we're probably not going to have that.
We're not getting him.
So today,
I told you, Dave Ramsey only said 2 words to me, and I've worked for his organization a time or two.
Well, he's got a lot of people.
We were standing at a book signing, and he literally leaned down to me, and he said, "Is my head shining?" And talking about, did he put enough stuff on his head so the cameras wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, how about that?
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Tim can relate.
Yeah. Well, I think Sid can too.
So can I.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about if you think that you would like to operate a small business, we get a lot of conversations about that. We thought that it'd be a good idea to give you some thoughts to consider, some facts to consider. And one of them is this. The idea, you can get the wanderlust of, I'm going to do my own thing, right? But I wanted to make sure we threw out some facts. So this is from the Small Business Bureau of Labor and Statistics. 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. That's 20%. So 10 of them start, 2 of them don't make it, but 8 do. 50% fail within 5 years. 50%. So half of them, boom, 5 years, done.
Yeah, that's kind of why we started this podcast, right?
That's right.
Because we talked to ourselves in the first 5 years that we were established.
Absolutely. Then 65% fail within 10 years. So 6.5 out of that 10, only about 25% make it past 15 years. So 75% fail within the first 15 years. The main reason for failure include cash flow problems, lack of market demand, poor management, and failure to adapt to changes. This is all from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so that's not mine. That's just big metadata. And you can look around other places. It's much worse. There's a number where 80% of all small businesses fail within the first 5 years. And then it will depend on the sector too. So
Yeah, in the tech space
right
now.
Yeah.
I like the failure rate's probably.
Yeah, it's real high.
It's high.
It's real high. And then you've got some other that are, easy entry, landscape, there's 800 of them around here. And I know 80% of those are going to fail within the first couple of years because it just happens. And like it said, poor management, cash flow management, and stuff like that. So
I think also, wouldn't you say a large portion of the failure, and this is what I'm finding working with founders now, is unrealistic expectations about the ramp time?
Yeah, you were kind of high on that and have been for a long time.
I just know that in my organization, had I quit every time it got tough or every time it looked bleak, I would have quit a lot. And I think a lot of times, we just had a founder in here that was in the studio. And I think if you went down the hall and asked him right now, hey man, how do you make it in a startup? He would say persistence. Because there's been ebbs and flows that I've watched him go through just in the short time that I've been helping him kind of scale to mass.
Well, back to your premise that many of them fail because of a would you say unrealistic expectation on ramp time. I would say that that's probably pretty. I think that hits a lot of people. They think they're going to own their own business and they're going to make a lot more money, and maybe they will, but they don't consider the cost of it too, the risk of it too, and then if there is seasonality to that business, I don't know that they often consider, being the squirrel putting away acorns for the winter to make it through. Which I think is a good segue to our first note, which is that I guess our first thing that we wanted to mention to consider is they're shooting real bullets out there. What does that mean? That means at that point, there is no excuse for, the dog ate my homework. There is no excuse for I just couldn't get to it, mom got sick, or the kids are sick, or my girlfriend broke up with me, or whatever excuse that is that may come up. It doesn't matter to the customer. They'll just say, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, they don't care. I mean, this sounds horrible. They don't care my dad's sick.
No, they don't. It's not their dad.
No, yeah, right. But do they sympathize? Probably so, but they don't really care when it gets down to it.
Well, sorry, we'll get someone else to do this. No, I'll be there.
Right.
They're shooting real bullets out there, so you're going to lose customers with excuses. When you're working for someone else, maybe that goes over a little bit better, that you don't have to come in that day or something like that. And the job, you can retain your job. Not everywhere, but sometimes. And they're shooting real bullets, meaning it's live action.
What's that Mike Tyson quote?
Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's it. That's it.
That's for sure. And everyone wants value. Everyone wants, the bank wants their money back. People want to get paid on time. Customers want you to be there on time. They want all of that, and it's real. So if you're thinking about starting a business, first thing you should consider, if you can get your head wrapped around it, is that they are shooting real bullets out there, and it's real life or death, success or bust kind of thing. And if you don't go in it with that attitude, just good luck to you, man. Good luck. It's going to be a tough road. You're not going to be able to half-ass starting a business that I know of. There may be some that are out there that you can kind of go all in or what, or, not go all in and do well, sort of accidentally. I just have never heard of it.
Oh, I'll be real honest with you. So I thought I had the, Midas touch or whatever a couple times and started outside things that I couldn't give full attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not around anymore.
No, because it requires a lot of effort.
Right.
And so that really gets me to another point is, have you ever read Good to Great, Jim Collins' Good to Great?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So the flywheel analogy, and I don't know if you remember this, but it really struck with me, is the best analogy or best visual that I have for owning, starting, operating a business and trying to get it to scale. So, listeners, if you're driving, don't close your eyes and visualize this. But if you're sitting somewhere, just visualize you're underneath this big flywheel, which, if you don't know what a flywheel is this big round, like, gear almost. And what you're doing is you are giving it all your effort to get it to turn. And so, you're putting everything you got into it, all of the legs in your calves, your quads, your glutes, your backs, your shoulders, your hands are gripping it, and you're just pushing it forward. And everything you got, it turns at about, an eighth of a turn. And then you hit it again, it hits another eighth. And you hit it again, and it might move, not quite a quarter, but almost. And you hit it again, and these are years or quarters that we're talking about, each push, each turn of that flywheel. And so what he was really getting at is that it takes a lot of time to get a business up and going and get real momentum. But what he did say is if you can stay focused on turning that flywheel, and if you can stay persistent, and you've already said that eventually the flywheel starts to have its own momentum. It creates inertia. And so eventually you can just turn it with just a quick push, each quarter, and you're not having to put everything you have in it. Maybe you've got a team built up after 3-4 years, and you've got a little bit more capacity, and you can give it a good push, every quarter, every year, whatever.
That's why you should never compare yourself to a person when you've just started out, a person that's been in business 20 years.
Yeah.
They've already got the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right.
They've got real momentum. They've paid their dues. They've learned from their mistakes. And
because like you and I get it a lot.
Yeah.
Like people will come to us and say, how do y'all do that? Well, we've been doing this 20 years.
20 plus. Yeah.
Yeah. 20 plus. And so I know that even though like times are hard, like when times are hard, that I've been through this before.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if I just stay true and my idea is good enough, that it'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Or that my business plan is good enough, or the business that I'm running is viable. Now, I mean, we could get in the argument or the discussion about non-viable businesses. A lot of people try to push non-viable products through.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to be wise. But I like that, going back to Good to Great, that he breaks it down in 5 areas. Discipline people, take disciplined thought, take disciplined action that builds momentum, and then you get breakthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And you said comparison, and I think that's another good topic just to discuss, is that, man, and this is for every aspect of your life, especially with social media being so pervasive. Stop comparing your insides to everyone's outsides because you're never going to win.
No, that never. And you've got to remember, if you're basing your comparison off social media, they're putting their A game on
They're
there.
putting their A game.
You don't get to see their C game.
And if you're doing that in business, everything looks shiny and nice from the outside. It's the inside. And I've seen the inside of plenty of businesses to know that we all have weaknesses and strengths. My businesses included.
You know, that's the problem I have with people, especially early in business, going to a bunch of conferences.
Oh, yeah, man.
You can leave.
Oh, I didn't even think about that when we were setting up for this.
When I first started out, I would go to conferences and I would leave and feel like a total failure.
Oh my God,
the only people that speak at conferences is people that's on their A game. I wish they would have a conference.
Yeah, for losers.
That you would just get to see people.
Look, you're not alone.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man, God, that's such a good point. Don't go to conferences.
Like, I'll be real honest with you. I love EOS and I love what they're doing. But the last EOS conference for me was a little bit depressing.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Well, and I think you and I talked about it a little bit, that Gino Wickman got up there and said, "Oh, it's just about,
Oh, this is when he was all love.
Yeah, all love. It was all love.
And I'm like, God, when you get $100 million payout, I guess you can do
can
that.
Just be love, $100 million.
Yeah.
So even when you go to conferences, go to them in mind of learning, but not comparing yourself to the people on the stage. Because if you compare yourself to the people on the stage, they're only being asked to be there because they are the top of the top.
Yeah, I would go to conferences and I would feel like I'm so behind.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then the worst part is I would take these 10 things that I had great notes on. I would spend the whole time traveling back, thinking out execution plans for all 10 things and have unrealistic expectations on the implementation time and say, oh, in 3 months from now, we're going to implement all of these. My team would just brace for impact when I'd come back. And it didn't go over well, It didn't go over well. And then I would be frustrated and why can't we get this done? And watch out for conferences. Watch out for trade magazines.
Yeah. And you've got to remember that most people speaking at conferences aren't doing the thing anymore.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, they're out.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah, they've sold it.
Yeah. Man, lots of consultants are like that too.
Oh, definitely so. I told you, the best time of my life is when I get to go consult. Because I can absolutely...
Got plenty of ideas.
Create ideas that I do not have to implement. And I can create great ideas. It's the implementation that is the difficult part.
Yeah, all of my biggest mistakes started off as great ideas.
Definitely so.
Great. I never had a bad idea until the execution phase.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about my friend Wes Cody. He's the president of C2 Wealth Strategies, a financial advisory firm dedicated to providing personalized solutions for your financial needs. Wes and his team of professionals are passionate about helping clients create wealth and achieve financial freedom. At C2 Wealth Strategies, they believe in taking a holistic approach to financial planning and are committed to building long-lasting relationships with their clients, ensuring their financial well-being every step of the way. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Contact Wes and C2 Wealth today at c2wealth.com to schedule a consultation. Let Wes and his team help you build your financial future.
If you're a small business owner looking to take your business to the next level, listen up. My good friend Chris Francis has spent over 20 years growing his tree care business to national success. Now he's partnered with Rick Miller, you've probably heard him here on the podcast before, Harvard MBA, and business consultant to create Roadmap for Growth, an online course to help you scale, build teams, and create systems that last. It's not just for the tree industry. This course applies to any small service business. Check out treebusiness.com or hit the link on the Overlap homepage to learn more.
Your ideas could be really, really viable, but you may have an execution problem.
Yeah.
I've been there too.
Yeah. Tell me about the execution. I mean, I get what you're saying, but tell me about
Well,
your
being able
scenario.
to put a plan in place to take the idea that I've come up with and working in the ideal world, because that's really what I do. There's been products that I've created in my mind that are really, really, really great. Could other people created them after I had the idea and did really well with them, but I could never get past the idea to the execution, and we do that a lot.
Like you couldn't get it manufactured, you
couldn't get it
published,
right,
or what?
Couldn't get it published, couldn't get it built, couldn't find the programmer, didn't have the team depth to be able to facilitate as grand a scale as it needed to be.
Gotcha.
And I'm sure it's the same way.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you just made this move into the commercial phase. I think it probably would be that too in a service business. Is what do you have to scale to go from residential to commercial? And what do you have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it doesn't happen near as fast as you'd think. And it takes persistence and focus and some tenacity.
Yeah, I like the word. And I think if you look at this episode, we go back to the word grit. I think owning a business takes grit.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say owning a business, and I was going to end on this, but let's bring it up now since you brought up grit. Owning the business, listen up, Tim. I know he's over there listening. Owning a business is the adult version of the marshmallow test. Have you heard of this test?
No.
Oh, what? Okay. So you mentioned grit, right?
I just know I like my marshmallows like totally burnt.
Totally burnt? Okay.
Do. Yeah, I like them.
All right. I like, I'll eat them anyway. I don't care, but I like them lightly burnt. But so the marshmallow test, you know that Dr. Angela Duckworth, and she wrote the book Grit. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So, it's a fantastic book. But really it delves into grit as an actual personality trait or a personality trait. And I'm kind of just trying to remember best I can. But essentially, these psychologists did this test of being able to delay gratification. So they put a bunch of children, I can't remember the ages, but they're relatively young, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And they're in a room, sort of a lab room. They set the kit down and they say, here's you one marshmallow. Now, if you can wait for 15 minutes and not eat that marshmallow, I'll come back and give you 2, And the kids that would wait for an additional marshmallow got 2 marshmallows. Maybe there was 3. I think they were playing with the numbers that it would take to get them to wait, and then all the other things. But essentially, a bunch of kids wouldn't wait. They would just go ahead and I'll take the marshmallow in the hand is better than 2 in the bush, I guess. I don't know this person. Maybe they're not going to bring it to me. I don't know what the reason behind it was, other than they didn't delay gratification. They wanted immediate gratification. The kids that did delay gratification, got the 2 marshmallows. They studied both of these individuals, or all of them, the different groups, I'm sorry, up through a long period of time, through college and into their career worlds. And the ones that had that natural trait to delay gratification, all of them were better. I'm pretty sure all of them. All of them were better off, better educated, better jobs, better lives, more income, all that stuff. Delayed gratification is the name of the game when you start operating a business. It's the adult version of the marshmallow test. Can you hold off? Can you not take all of the money? Can you treat your team? Can you attract the right team members? Can you compensate them well? Can you find a way to share the wealth? Can you do all of those things? And ultimately, for 10 years down the road, being set up better than you possibly could have been.
Oh man, there's overlaps everywhere.
Everywhere.
Same with family.
Mm-hmm.
Same with, can you not compare yourself to your parents?
Oh, That's going to be a tough one for the next 20 years, isn't it?
I talk to so many people that want to be at the same place that someone, young family starting out, wanting the same stuff I have, quite frankly.
Okay. Yeah.
I spent 30 years building it.
Building some equity in things and then rolling it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. The adult version of the marshmallow test. I think that's owning a business. I think, and there's lots of other things.
That's good. Tim, there's your one-line clip. The adult version of the marshmallow test. That is owning the business.
And maybe they'll know what I'm talking about. Maybe not. But in that delayed gratification, one of the key components that I kind of picked up on is, and I sort of dropped it a little bit in there, is that delayed gratification, can you not take all the money out? Because, Keith, what's the only way businesses go out of business?
They run out of money.
They run out of money. People will say, oh, well, it was a bad idea. Maybe it was a bad idea. I don't know. But what did that lead to? Ran out of money. We couldn't figure out, there wasn't the right demand or product demand or whatever. And what did that equal?
They run out of money.
We couldn't figure out marketing, or we couldn't find enough good people. What did that equal?
Running out of money.
It doesn't matter what. That's the end result. The end result is the same. How you get there can vary wildly. But the only way a business goes out of business is that it runs out of money. And so if you are wanting to take your payday or your, man, I deserve this too early or too often, you're just going to kill the golden goose. So it's the adult version of the marshmallow test. Can you hold on to that cash, because cash is king?
You actually helped me. You actually helped me a ton with this, because I was much like we were talking about earlier, being that I run a company that doesn't need equipment.
Yeah. That
I can look at you and say, why are you borrowing money?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you ever borrow money? It's stupid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started walking around your yard one day, like at your place, looking at the 30 trucks that you have out there, or more than that. I don't know how many you got.
Yeah, 38.
Yeah. And
just in Daphne.
And I was thinking, my God. And so then we had, way back, we had a banker on with us, and he was talking about the ability to borrow money. And he was like, we don't, and this kind of, you would think it's counterintuitive to what you think, that when you need money, you just go borrow it.
Yeah.
But to borrow it, you got to have it.
Yeah. I've got a saying, and I say it all the time. The bank will always loan you money if you have money. They will never loan you money if you don't. And so
let's break this down.
So, okay.
When do you make the determination that borrowing versus taking out of cash?
Okay. So almost, if it's under a certain amount and I just don't want to make payments, I'll go ahead and pay cash. But I almost always will leverage that, just because I'm hyper focused on cash reserves, really. And just having a safety valve, not safety valve, but a safety reserve, a prudent reserve, if you will. 3 months, 6 months of expenses, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'm kind of hyper focused on that, because I've gone broke a couple of times and there's no one to loan you money. So also, I'm not going to go borrow money on something that's not going to make money too.
Right.
That's the other thing. I want return on capital, So if it's a truck, I've got those figures, kind of worked out. This truck in this division should produce X amount of revenue each year. And we're tracking that, what's return on capital on this, this piece of equipment should allow us to do this amount of work, the return on that is kind of factored in. You don't have to get fancy about that. You don't need to get too in the weeds. You just need to know that if I go borrow money, it needs to produce money for me. Now, here's where, especially early folks will do is they'll go borrow, let's take a landscaper. They'll go borrow, I don't know. I don't even know what one of those big fancy trucks costs now. What's like an F-250 diesel crew cab cost? Is that
it's 85? It's 85.
Is it 80? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably
85. It's got to be more than that, though, man. Like, it's got to be. Okay, let's say it's 85. $85,000 to go run estimates if you're not doing the work and pulling the trailer. Okay, let's say you're doing the work, you're pulling the trailer, and you're doing estimates. Is that a good investment?
That one may be a decent investment.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think for $85,000, I can get 2 trucks. I could probably go get a very decent truck
that's
for about
2 years old.
Yeah, that's probably 4 years old. It's probably got, I don't know, 75,000 miles on it. Just came off lease. It's a an F-250. Maybe it's not diesel. Who cares? And it's going to be fine. And then I've got another truck that I could run estimates in, and we can take 2 vehicles to the job. And if I need to leave, I can. I'm not leaving my crew there. But you get what I'm saying? Like, just the how you invest your capital really is important. And if you're going to spend, I don't even know what the payment is on $85,000 a month. Maybe I'm imagining it's like, $2,000 a month there for the next 5 years. Could I get more out of that? Could I get more? What can I get? Does that make sense? And there's some different, areas of opinion on buying new and not having to mess with it, or buying used and potentially having the risk of having downtime. We're talking about the young business owner starting or thinking about starting a business. And we're talking about in your first 5 years, and we're making some assumptions that you're almost hand to mouth here a little bit. And I would venture to say that going and buying the new fancy truck is just a terrible waste of money. And what it will do is will tie up your debt to income ratio. And so banks won't loan you money when you might need a line of credit because you got into commercial work and you're not going to get paid for a certain amount of time and you've got to float that. There's some other things, but cash is king. And we're talking about all of these things that we could have whole other podcasts. And we have had podcasts on cash flow management. And I'd say it's probably the number one thing in business, and most people don't consider it.
When do you decide buy versus rent?
If it's a new piece of equipment and you can rent it, you've never really used it, I'd say rent it. A couple jobs, If you can rent, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know.
Well, I've seen you rent big pieces of equipment.
Okay, yeah, big piece of equipment that we're only going to use one off. Yeah, do that. Like, if you need a cherry picker, that's one of those like baskets and it goes up and down. I don't know why we would need that, but if you need a big excavator for digging a pond or something like that, and it's bigger than the mini X we have, I mean, that makes sense. You're only going to use it for that one job. You build it into the job and it's fine. Where I stop renting is when it's like, we've never had a skid steer in the fleet. Let's rent it for a month and see how much we use it. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
And then you may not have enough data there, but when you rent it by the month, you get a pretty good discount. And you would say, well, I don't have enough jobs built in for that. And you go, well, that's kind of where the gamble comes into play.
Could it get you more jobs?
Could it get you more jobs?
Yeah.
I think skid steers, for me, other people are probably way smarter about this. It was one of those things where I just didn't realize how much we were going to use them until we got them. And that sounds crazy for a landscape company, and people are probably laughing at me right now, but I was hyper focused on, keeping it as low cash outlay as possible. Again, I've gone broke a few times.
Yeah.
And it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, I may have a little PTSD.
I got some PTSD, I promise. Yeah, I still buy used clothes from eBay.
Yeah, you and me both.
So cash is king. If you're thinking about opening a business, man, just really, you gotta think about cash flow management and really, you got to think about delayed gratification too, because you're trying to build something up. And if you start taking all that money away, you really put yourself at a big risk because, like it says, 50%. And I think that's a very low number. I think it's closer to 80% fail in the first 5 years.
Hey, let me tell you about a friend of the show called Content Fresh. Since they've taken over our social media for the Overlap podcast, we've seen incredible growth. When you combine the growth from all social platforms, we're looking at a massive increase of 2,235%. This partnership has truly transformed our reach and engagement. If you're passionate about growing your business, partnering with Content Fresh could be a game changer for you. Go to overlaplife.com and click on sponsors today.
I want to take a moment to talk about someone who's been instrumental in my personal and business success. That's Johnny Barranco and his team at Barranco & Associates. For over 7 years, Johnny has been my go-to accountant and financial consultant. I can tell you that he's more than just a tax preparer. Johnny takes a holistic approach to all my financial dealings, aligning them with my long-term plans and personal lifestyle. I've recommended Johnny to several friends throughout different business groups around the country, and the feedback has been nothing short of exceptional. His expertise and service are top-notch. So if you're looking for someone who not only prepares your taxes, but also helps you strategize for the future, Johnny and his team at Barranco & Associates are the ones to call. Trust me, you won't regret it. So contact Johnny Barranco today and take the first steps towards financial peace. You're not going to regret this.
Another thing that people hear when they grow a business or start a business is you got to create culture.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I think this is another one of those misconstrued words in business that basically what it means is the intentionality in which you take in to create culture is what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so culture is a thing that I really think that you have to, one, that can change over time.
Sure.
Two, that it takes deep thought to create an actual culture inside your organization.
Yeah. Yeah, both of those are absolutely right.
But I will say this too. If you let the culture dictate itself, it will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like to say that culture is going to happen one way or another. How it happens depends on you. Now, you can be intentional about it or you can let it happen. Which one's it going to be? That's it. That's it. It's going to create, culture is just going to happen. And here, culture is one of those words that's just overused on every business podcast or everything else. Let's just define culture. In my simple mind, this is what I think about culture. Culture is just how do we behave? How do we do things? How do we interact with each other? How do we interact with our client? That's culture.
To the outside world, it would be considered the attitude of your business.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Like there's been times that I've felt that if you're feeling a pinch internally that something's off, other people outside, especially if you have a forward-facing business in the community, they're feeling it too. And so that's what I like to say is that the culture is the attitude of your business.
I like it. I'm good with that.
Like if you meet somebody with a rotten attitude.
Man. Yeah.
I've met businesses with a rotten attitude.
I have too.
And internally, if you went back behind the veil of their front doors, you would find out
a lot of rotten attitudes. And if you looked hard enough, you wouldn't even take that much, but you would understand what's driving the rotten attitude. There's some leverage point that's being pulled to create that culture in it, or there's something not being pulled to create that culture.
Right.
So let's break this down for the person that is, I want to start my own business. I want to do, whatever. And that's fine. I'm not dogging that out at all. We're just trying to give you some thoughts to consider, which is, if you're going to have a business that's going to have people, which, unless it's a consulting business, man, maybe there's some other stuff, but most of them are going to have people. How you interact with your people and how you compensate your people and how you lead your people, that's all going to dictate the culture. That's going to dictate what's going on. And how do you compensate your people? Let's dig into that even further. Is how do you incentivize your people? What does success look like? What's your scorecard look like? How are they getting paid? That's going to dictate how your culture evolves. Let's go back to your rotten attitude and rotten company analogy there. And I would say that whatever they either have some sort of scorecard that's all about, efficiency, that's probably been indexed to the point where they're not worried about a customer interaction or customer experience, or they don't have customer experience and customer interaction and kindness or whatever anywhere in their company. No one's that champion. No one's saying this is how we should treat our customers. And so in a vacuum, without that, you have enough customers, they start to become the problem instead of the reason we're all here. Does that make sense? They start to become the issue because they're the one calling with the complaint while I'm trying to get the TPS report done for the week. They're the one calling and complaining for the 8th time this month, and every time we got to go do something different for them instead of going, whoa, we're really not serving our customer. I'm terribly sorry, and I hate that you're going through that. Let me get with whoever the manager is, and let's get on top of this. This is the 2nd time you've called. I'm so sorry. And really taking that and going, hey, Randy, you need to get over there. I'll go with you. Let's go look and see what the problem is. I don't want Keith calling us again. That's a culture of that has really driven home the fact that if we serve one customer, and the tough ones are the ones that are going to make us better. If we serve one customer at a time, especially the tough ones, those are the ones that are going to make us all better. That's a culture. If we say, man, you got to get rid of those customers that are terrible, that's a culture too. It just is what it is by intentionality or by default. And if you're thinking about a business, you really got to be, the real issue is you've got to be intentional about it, and you got to think about it, and you got to work really hard towards it, and you got to be real consistent. There's the persistence, the consistency, the grit, whatever, and it'll take you a while, but eventually you get there. Keith's working up something over here. He's got statistics and stuff or something.
No, I was just looking at, I'm actually dealing with, it just made me think about when you said, hey, if you have one of those products where you can just be a jerk, I'm actually dealing with one of those customers, or one of those vendors right now.
Oh, yeah.
That they are the cat's pajamas in the field. There's nobody that touches them.
Oh.
But their customer service is the most horrible customer service.
Yeah.
I mean, we are about to spend a ton of money with them. And they just don't care. Like, you call them for a quote or something, and they're just like, they're put off that you've called them to ask.
Yeah. What are you doing calling us? So we have this chat bot on our website.
So if you have that product, good on you. I hope you can keep it, but there's going to be somebody that starts the same thing.
I had software like that the customer service was terrible. We spent a bunch of money. Now, in one space, they were the best. It was just really good information. It was clunky. It didn't work really well. They weren't worried about making it intuitive or easy to use. They were just like, whatever. everyone else figured it out. You'll figure it out.
Well, this company is the opposite. Their product is the best.
Oh.
And it works super well.
Oh, well.
But they just don't care.
Yeah. Well, someone else, like you said, is going to come along and make a better product.
Yep. Or just make it the same product with better customer service.
Yeah. So
culture.
Yeah. One last thing on this, and then we'll wrap it up, is all of these issues, problems, if you will, that we brought up, they're all problems. There's definitely some upsides. You've got some autonomy, which is good and bad. You've got don't fool yourself that you've got some freedom, because that's not true. You'll have less freedom for a while. But it's yours. There's some pride of ownership. There's some stuff like that. It's yours. It's something you're building. And if you're like me, if you're like Keith, we like building things, you know. I like building communities. I like building companies. I like that stuff. But there comes with all of that a number of problems. And here's my final comment, is that those problems are your problems. You can't abdicate those responsibilities because you're the owner. And you can't abdicate those responsibilities because you're signing the check. You can't abdicate those responsibilities because you're the head honcho and you hired these people. They're going to do it. People are just people, and some of them are going to do well, some of them are not. But it doesn't change the fact that those problems are your problems. And so if you don't address them, maybe with the person that was supposed to have handled it, or maybe you handle the problem directly, whatever. But if you don't do it, no one will. No one's going to solve the cash flow problem unless you do. You can definitely not outsource this culture. If you're not being intentional about the culture, no one else will.
And quite frankly, you as the owner, operator, it's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
It's not your team member's responsibility to create the culture in your business. You decide that.
If they were good at that, they'd go do their own thing.
Absolutely.
You can't abdicate your responsibility as the owner, the vision of the company. Where are we going? What are we going to be best in class in? And how are we going to charge for that? Can't really abdicate that. It's your responsibility. Many times, not all the time, you can't abdicate the sales role for a while. Most of us started, I didn't want to be a salesperson, but I got pretty damn good at it, because who else was I going to pay to do it? And pay pennies, on the dollar to do it. I couldn't afford to hire anyone to do that. So you got to get good with that. And then the last thing I'll say, and this is kind of my shtick, and people do this and it's a bad idea. You can't abdicate your financial planning or your financial modeling or the control to your accountant. If I'm asking like, hey, what'd you make this last month? Or, hey, what'd you make this last quarter? And you say, I don't know, I got to get my accountant to send me that. You're in a bad spot, dude, or lady, whatever. You're in a bad spot because you're taking the actual lifeblood of your company and putting it in someone else's hands, and it's not their baby, And I know we put our babies into daycare and all that stuff, but we got choices of who that is and how we do it. And but if you're not a numbers person, and I get it, I wasn't either at first, kind of not, but whatever. If you're not that, then you're setting yourself up for, I don't know, to be taken advantage of, or to not have all the facts and make poor decisions. All of the things. You can't abdicate that financial part of your business. And if you're not the guy yet, you need to be soon. And you need to educate yourself.
I would venture to say, if you're the person that says, I'm just not a numbers person, you probably shouldn't own a business.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it work for non-numbers people.
Well, but they backfill their weakness.
Yeah, and I
But-
think that they do kind of get better. They get good enough to be,
Proficient.
functional.
Yeah.
To know when someone's lying to them and to know what they need to look at and really know what success looks like.
Yeah.
If you're running your business like a checkbook, that's not the way to go. If we got money in the bank, we're spending it. That's not cash flow management. You gotta think deeper than that. And that's a tough one for people. And that's what usually gets most of those businesses in the first 5 years. Getting up and getting going is not that hard.
No, you can start anything from staying going is the problem.
Staying going and making it work. That's the tough part. So, owning a business is like the adult version of the marshmallow test. Give it some thought. Good luck to you, and keep listening.
Go check out our sponsors. They make all this possible. All this ideation that we have on this show. I mean, Sid could have never come up with owning a business as like the marshmallow test unless our sponsors was there.
That's right.
Go check them out. Peace.